Hello, everyone, and welcome to Asagao Academy.
I swear this game doesn't have any horror.
As far as we know.
I'm pretty sure this is straight up like dating sim.
Yeah, we went for something as uncomplicated as we possibly could after...
Our minds were blown from Doki Doki Literature Club.
Yeah, that was... Did not see that coming. This hopefully will not be quite that complicated.
I will point out that once we finished it, though, we had to go online and try to find something else similar to it because it was just such a cool concept.
It was a cool concept. This isn't like that.
But the cool gimmick of this game is that it's a bunch of YouTubers that they've made into dude characters in a dating sim.
Yep. All right.
So I'm going to make Matt play like all 15,000 men.
Come on, you made me... There were only 4 girls in the other game, and you still made me play one of them.
I didn't. You acknowledged that, and you went for it. You didn't even ask my opinion. Nope.
No, at one point I said, oh, you're going to be all the girls, and you're like, no.
Uh-huh.
And you're like, because they're all girls. And I was like, that was the point.
Uh-huh.
That's what happened.
So anyways, while we debate this.
All right. So anyway, let's hit play and see what happens. Chapter 1.
I think you might have to hit the button. Oh, no,
there we go. The train made its way along the gentle curve of the coast of Japan, whisking me farther and farther from home.
At least we know they're in Japan this time.
It's true. Across from me sat a boy, face half buried in a newspaper. He was deeply entranced in whatever article he was reading and hadn't spoken a single word to me, even when I asked if I could join him in the last compartment with any available space. He shrugged, nodded, and adjusted his newspaper without ever making eye contact. It'd been almost an hour, in fact, and he hadn't once looked at me. Devoid of conversation, I took instead to counting the buttons on the pretentiously lush Carmen seat cushion. 1, 2, 3, 21, 22, and so forth, over and over. Now and again, I turned to look out the window where the trees were blurring by. Sometimes the smeared green would break and reveal the quiet blue of the Sea of Japan. Eventually, this rapidity made my stomach churn, and I went back to counting the buttons on the seat cushions.
I like this girl
1, 2, 3. The train compartment shuddered around us. My eyes wandered to the boy in his jacket. It wasn't the school-issued blue that I and the other students on the train were wearing. Instead, it was a green, varsity-like jacket with an embroidered patch poorly sewn on front. All right. I can do this.
You have to do that one because you already said it. It's Jared.
I know. That's why I'm just trying to...
Okay.
All right. So you're a first year then? He folded his newspaper neatly, set it in his lap, and looked at me with a half-interested gaze. Did he just catch me staring?
Oh, God.
Now that the paper was gone, I saw his face. He watched me through heavy-lidded eyes.
And he's sparkling.
His hair was immaculately groomed, his teeth straight and blindingly bright.
Hey, is he from that Twilight movie?
Oh, he's out in the sunlight.
He's a vampire.
All right. We think ProJared may be a vampire. Someone look into this. There was something about him, the way the light hit him, that made him look like he was almost sparkling.
Me?
He glanced around the compartment, empty beside us, and laughed.
Oh, no. I'm a first year. Oh, I'm not a first year. I'm a third year.
Come on, you've had 2 lines.
Shut up.
The train began to slow, metal wheels groaning against metal tracks. The sudden shift threatened to rob me of whatever was left of my stomach, but I closed my eyes and took a deep breath, willing myself to keep it together. What kind of impression would I leave, puking on a student before I even arrived at the academy? The boy frowned. I picked at the hem of my cotton skirt. That's not possible. I've never seen you before. It took me a moment of mouth fishing to find a response.
It's because I'm a transfer student?
He laughed again. Transfer student, huh? We don't get many of those. I removed my acceptance letter from the front pocket of my uniform. The paper, heavyweight, off-white, had accumulated creases from my reading and rereading, as if the words might have changed since the last time I read it. The boy took it, studied it, then handed it back to me.
I'll see you around.
Well then, Hannah, I suppose I'll be seeing you around. He smiled at me as he picked up the suitcase lying next to him. By the time I hiccuped a response, he was already gone from the compartment. I stared out into the empty hallway of the train. It was then that I realized he, having gotten it from my acceptance letter, knew my name, and I never got his.
Oops.
The train settled at the station, and I filed out with the rest of the uniformed students. It was early April, and the last frost of winter had come and gone. The trees were already green, their leaves shivering in the occasional gust weaving through them. The air was mild, only a few clouds hanging in the sky. I walked along the road with the swarm of blue-jacketed bodies, looking at the little groups breaking off from the crowd. Everyone was buzzing so animatedly around me. I held my suitcase tight in my sweaty hands. It was leather-bound and worth more than anything it contained. It wasn't far to the school, and I was, for maybe the first time in my life, thankful that what I owned didn't amount to much. My school issued black Oxfords, click, click, clicked on the pavement. I walked this over and over in my mind. So many nights I lay awake, imagining what it would be like to walk from the train station to Asagao Academy this first time. My new start. I always imagined that everything would change for me on this walk. That somehow, everything would be magically different. But as I looked around, I realized nothing had changed. I hadn't changed. By the time I reached the massive gate to the academy, I forgot all about the disappointment slouching in the back of my throat. The school, framed by the gate's twisting black metal, was just as beautiful as the glossy photos I saw in its pamphlets. This was it. Asagao Academy. I glanced around. The swarm of students gathered around the gate. Beyond it, tiny blue people bounced around the academy's main building. A girl pressed a button to one side of the gate. The excitement in the air was almost palpable. A few moments later, the black gate, with great effort, creaked outwards and cleared the pathway. As the rest of the group shifted into motion, I followed along, a sheep in the herd. My stomach tied itself into knots. The crowd split off in different directions. For a moment, I panicked. A tired-looking man with graying hair called out for first years, a cluster of fresh-faced students gathering around him.
Hey, look at that girl.
I turned. A few feet away, a small group of boys were pointing at me and snickering.
Jerks.
Pink hair? Are you kidding me?
How desperate can you get?
Hot shame crawled down my neck. I attached myself to a group of girls, following a few steps behind them. In the distance, cicadas hummed in time to my shoes crunching against the gravel. My hair. It wasn't my fault that my hair looked like this. Luckily, I found myself at the girls' dormitory, a large sign in the lawn reading Primrose House. The building dwarfed me in size and sheer intimidation. How many students did Asagao have? As I approached the building, a red-headed girl lingering nearby caught my attention. I looked away. Then I looked back. She was staring at me. She walked over.
Oh, you must be my roommate!
Or they can do it for me.
Well, but now you know what you're up against.
You must be my roommate!
I eyed her warily. She was smiling and bouncing in a way that suggested her views on life were akin to a perpetual bouncy castle.
Oh, good.
What?
Me?
Bingo.
Of course, you silly. Let me guess. Room 325?
I thought back to the paper I received a month prior with a list of all the supplies I needed for the year and my dorm arrangements.
Yeah, that's right.
She laughed, but I still couldn't figure out what was so funny. Was she laughing at me?
When I found out my roommate was a transfer student, I knew you were gonna totally be the main character. I'm sorry? What? When I saw you outside the gate, I knew it was you. I mean, look at that hair.
I felt a lump forming in my throat. What was she talking about? She had to be making fun of me. I hadn't spent more than 5 minutes on campus, and I was already being mocked. My hands began to tremble.
Is there something wrong with my hair?
Her face slackened from its amused smile to a more worried expression. Then she began to laugh again.
Oh, no, it's great. I'm sorry. I'm just gonna do it along with her.
We're getting off on the wrong foot, aren't we? Oh gosh.
Is she gonna talk through this whole thing?
Huh.
I'm Mai Sasaki. You must be Hana.
Apparently so.
I bowed my head. How come you get off the hook?
It's nice to meet you, Maya. Right? That's how she said it.
Thought it was Mai.
Mai? Okay. Well, now she's not talking again.
Alright, there you go.
All your school books are waiting in our room with your welcome letter, and I read the envelope. I hope you're not mad.
Mai started walking toward the dorm's front doors. I followed behind like a lost puppy.
Did you check in at the front desk already? No, I didn't. I didn't know I was supposed to. Good. They'll offer to have a staff member give you a tour of the campus, but I can show you around. We don't get many transfer students in year 3, you know. Is that your only bag? Just the one? I'm glad I brought an extra bag of stuff to decorate our room with. I started already. I hope you don't mind. But I didn't wait to string the lights. I thought we could do it together. You know.
She spoke quickly, the words bubbling from her mouth, and left me no time to answer until the end of her monologue.
Yeah, okay. That sounds good.
She held the front door open for me, and I hurried inside. Girls filed up and down the hallway, howling greetings and exchanging vague niceties that were more often than not, "How was your break?" and "Look at how tan you got." Seemed like everyone knew each other. I followed Mai as she led me through the maze of students and up 2 flights of stairs. Each dorm floor looked the same as the last. Narrow, white doors lining both sides of the pale pink walls. Thin gold numbers were tacked to the front of each, the numbers rising as we climbed.
You're not missing anything with the campus tour, I promise. Mr. Saitamo does them every year, and he's like totally dull. He just drags you around the entire campus and talks in this weird squeaky voice of his.
You need to remember that for later.
I'll tell you everything you need to know.
I smiled, trying to let this calm my nerves.
Thanks.
We headed down a hallway on the 3rd floor. Mai stopped us in front of a door numbered 325.
Here we are.
A faint smell of potpourri wafted through the room. The walls, like the hallway, were a soft, powdery pink. Mai ready to face them with a tapestry of posters, magazine cutouts, and photographs.
I'm looking at the poster because I think this is supposed to be like Obsession by Calvin Klein.
I think so. Yep, there we go. Perfect. Some of the photos were of cats, but most were of male models and rugged musicians. A bunk bed, 2 writing desks with wooden chairs, a small dresser, and a mirrored vanity, all clearly provided by the school, were the only pieces of furniture in the tiny room. The top bunk was already covered in neatly tucked blankets and throw pillows of clashing patterns and colors. The bottom bunk had a single, stiff-looking pillow and a thin cotton blanket that I didn't need to touch to know it was horribly itchy. I must have grimaced because Mai quickly smiled at me.
I brought way too many pillows and blankets. I always overpack. I went to Italy over break, and Mom got really mad at me because I brought like 5 bags, but we were only going there for like a week.
She laughed, pulled several blankets and pillows from her bunk, and rearranged them neatly on mine. A sudden twinge of guilt and embarrassment hit me.
Perfection.
There! That's much better. Thanks, Mai.
I placed my suitcase on the bottom bunk and began to unpack its contents. Several changes of clothes, pens and pencils, empty notebooks, a few photographs of my father, a dilapidated stuffed rabbit, an old portable radio, and a small black box. Mai opened the curtains and the sunlight poured in.
So, where are you from?
I slid the now empty suitcase under the bottom bunk.
About 2 hours north of here, it's a small town called... I can't even say it.
Amarisu?
Yeah. You probably haven't heard of it.
I set the stuffed rabbit, Mr. Bunny, on my bed besides a purple and teal throw pillow.
Oh? Did you go to a different boarding school or... No, I went to a public school down the street from my house. Public school? What was that like? Were the students mean? Did you have lots of friends? I always went to private school. My parents work a lot. And then my dad goes overseas, so I think they stuck me here for convenience. Oh, hey, what's that?
I had removed an ornately patterned origami crane from the black box and was setting it on the unclaimed writing desk.
Oh, this? My mother made it for me a long time ago.
I set it beside a stack of thick textbooks, which I assumed were provided for me.
Wow, it's so pretty. I've never seen paper like that before. Oh yeah, the lights. Let me get them.
Mai went to her own desk, opened the drawer, and pulled out a long, tangled string of fairy lights.
I thought these would look nice. Here, help me string them up.
She grabbed a container of pushpins, then pulled her wooden desk chair out and over to one wall. I did the same with my own. Together, we pinned the lights around the perimeter of the room.
How was the train ride over? Did you meet anyone? No, not really. I was in a compartment with some guy and...
What?
Some guy, huh? Was he cute? Oh, yeah, I guess. He sparkled a lot like a vampire. I don't know. I wasn't really paying attention. Didn't even get his name.
Mai seemed disappointed for a moment, then perked back up.
You'll have to point him out to me if you see him again. Okay.
Once we finished stringing the lights, Mai climbed down from her chair and brushed her hands together triumphantly.
Yeah! Done! Okay, now it's time for lunch. The food here is pretty good. There's this ramen place down the street from campus that's like out of this world, but the school only lets us leave campus on weekends.
Mai walked to the window.
We could go today because it's Sunday and it's pretty nice out, but I guess you might want to go to the caf since you just got here. We could...
She was suddenly interrupted by her own enthusiastic laughter.
Oh my gosh. Mimi Santos totally just tripped outside and fell on her face. I saw it. Oh, is that mean to laugh? Maybe I shouldn't have. Oh well, anyways, let's go eat. I'm totally starved.
Alright, so she's the one with ADD in this game. She led me out of the room before I even had the chance to respond. The cafeteria was buzzing with students excited for the new year. The only people as nervous looking as I felt were the tables of skittish, wide-eyed first years. I stepped into line behind Mai, taking an empty plastic tray. We shuffled through, asking for helpings from the sulky cafeteria workers when we passed something that looked good. With full trays, Mai led me straight to a table in the back where a few students were already sitting. Mai sat down and I took a seat across from her.
Hi, Mai. How was your break?
Oh, jeez.
It was good. I went to Italy and Spain. Dad fell off the jet ski and broke his ankle.
Uh-huh.
It's better now, though. Oh? Well, that's nice.
I expected to be introduced, but the girl turned back to her group of friends and Mai turned back to me. She began to assault her food with a fork and tell me in a practically minute-by-minute account about her fleeting romance last summer with a boy she met on the beach that didn't go further than a few salty kisses. I sat back and let Mai talk. For the first time since arriving on campus, I felt like I was finally able to breathe. I picked up my Brussels sprouts and studied Mai as she spoke. The more she talked, the more I began to notice small details about her. She had a high songbird voice.
What?
She was dynamic, her face twisting this way and that in exaggerated expressions as she spoke. She laughed often. She imitated people in wildly unflattering voices, seemingly unrelated to her actual opinion of them. We're learning the important things about this girl. But most notably, she talked. A lot. I didn't find this particularly annoying, as it filled the silence and she hardly ever asked questions that required my full attention. Just as Mai was rounding off a shockingly detailed account of the time she accidentally walked in on her friend's older brother in the act of changing, a flash of familiar green caught my eye. I glanced over.
Hey, that's him. Who, huh?
I leaned across the table to whisper, just in case he could hear me through the ambient chatter of the lunchroom.
The boy from the train. That's him.
What?
Jared? Yeah, with the weird green jacket and the swoopy hair.
He'd just picked up his tray and was walking past us when something seemed to catch his eye. Oh, you? I looked up at him, suddenly realizing he was talking to me. Hana, nice to meet. I met you on the train. How are things settling down for you?
Really well. I found my roommate and she's been helping me out.
I gestured to Mai, who was thunderstruck. In fact, looking around, everyone was. People stopped eating to turn it and stare at Jared and me. My shoulders bunched around my neck. Well, if you ever need my help, I'll be around. Third year, right? I nodded.
All right.
Some of my friends are in that year. Of course, they can't compare to me, but I'll give them the heads up to look out for you. He flashed a dazzling smile, then winked. It's the least I can do for such a cute girl. Well, see you around. I watched, a torrent of thoughts raging through my head as he took a seat next to a bunch of guys who were all wearing the same jacket.
That's Jared!
She tore her eyes away from him and looked at me.
He's so cute.
He's the most beautiful guy in school.
That's incredible.
I can't believe he just looked at me.
I looked at Mai. Her cheeks were glowing in indecent pink.
Why do they all wear those jackets? Aren't all the guys supposed to wear blue blazers as part of their uniform? No, they're allowed to. Do we know if this is a boy or a girl?
I'm assuming this is a girl.
You know Jared? Oh, it's that girl again.
That girl turned back around and was looking at me with sudden interest. Did I know him? I only talked to him on the train for a few minutes, so not really. We weren't friends or anything. But looking around, Mai and this girl weren't the only ones who were interested. Everybody seemed to be listening in. They seemed so surprised when he talked to me. Maybe a little white lie couldn't hurt.
Oh, God.
All right.
Oh, God.
What do you want to do?
I don't know. Are we honest or not?
Let's be honest. I feel like this one can come back to bite us.
I say, not really. Oh.
She looked me up and down, sniffed, and turned away. Mai leaned towards me.
Don't mind Mimi. She was just trying to get in with you. Get in with me? Why? Well, you asked me about those guys in their jackets, right? Those are their normal boots club jackets.
That's incredible.
They're what? What's normal boots club? It's a club we have at school here. It's like totally exclusive and full of only the coolest students. They get together and play video games or something. She doesn't know. I just love this reverse. So the guys playing video games are the coolest.
Are like the coolest in the school.
That's sweet. That one right there is John, also known as Jontron. His bird's name is Yox. John is also the president of the drama club here at school. Next to him is PBG. He and John founded the Normal Boots Club together. PBG is one of the best soccer players on our team. Then there's Jirard. People call him the completionist because he's obsessed with completing things. He has the biggest itty-bitty kitty collection I've ever seen. Next to him is Jared, also known as ProJared. He's a model. Can't you tell from the mirror and the sparkliness? Also, part-time vampire.
All right. Someone needs to look into this.
Then there's... Is it Satchbag?
Yeah.
But everyone calls him Satch. He's like crazy smart. Those guys over there are Paul, Nick, and Josh. They write a column in the school paper called Continue. Paul is the one standing up, is the student council president. And the guy on the end is Shane. Also know more about video games than anyone, like, ever.
She exhaled a dreamy sigh into her mashed potatoes.
How would someone you know join the Normal Boots Club? You don't choose the boots, Hannah. The boots choose you. What does that even mean?
That was my question. Like that. The
This
boots
is like
choose
the
you.
Matrix.
Or is it like reverse Cinderella, where like if
Fight
the
Club.
boots fit?
It's Fight Club.
First rule of Boots Club is you don't talk about Boots Club. All right.
You have to be presented with the boots to be in the club. They're like super selective. What are the boots? The club has this boot statue. It's like the one on their patches, but it's gold-plated. It's their mascot, I guess. They do this weird initiation ritual with it.
That's incredible.
Ritual? I hear they fill a room with candles and wear these totally creepy robes during initiation. This year, 2 girls said she saw it once and they were like chanting around the boots and it sounded like they were talking backwards. Oh my god.
That's not a thing it should be.
This is a super cool cult. But I don't believe her. Even if it's true, I don't care if they're a cult because they're all really hot. Do they have a lot of friends? Yeah, tons of friends. I say they're the most popular kids in school. I mean, everyone in the school totally looks up to them. I bet they could get any girl in school too. Or boy, for that matter. Hey, are you gonna eat your cake?
I shook my head and pushed the plastic tray across the table to her.
This is gonna be a one-sided friendship, man.
For the remainder of lunch, I listened to Maya talk about Jared through mouths full of dissolved frosting. Back at the dorm, I sorted through the pile of textbooks the school left for me. My radio was playing a poppy tune, equal parts music to static. Mai fervently scribbled in a notebook at her desk, hunched over it with strikingly poor posture.
She's writing her diary about Jared.
Probably.
Hey.
Hey, Mai.
Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh.
She didn't bother to look up.
Am I supposed to have a textbook for History 309?
She shuffled through the papers on her desk before producing a thick textbook. A demure man in a powdered wig frowned at me from the cover.
Yeah, this one.
I sighed.
I don't have that one. The school must have missed it.
Mai shrugged and set the textbook back in her pile.
They have a bunch at the library. You could just, check one out. Where's the library?
Mai rifled through her notebook and wrote something down. She tore the page out and handed me a crudely drawn map.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll be back in a little bit.
I think it's a good place to stop
So-
it for now.
She likes to yak her head off, and instead of being, helpful and dragging her to the library, she draws her a really crappy map.
She's got to finish writing in her diary.
Yeah, she's probably, doodling about, her and Jared. What their names look like mashed together, little hearts next to it.
Right, writing pro Mai over and over again in
Yeah.
cursive.
Mrs. Pro.
This is my ProJared. All right. Well, thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed this, please do like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.